Welcome to Paradox Rising Radio Podcast, where the world of dreamscapes and nightmares become your reality.
Welcome to this week's episode titled Going Home on Paradox Rising Radio Podcast. Carson and Dakota's 10th anniversary is coming up, and as they haven't really had the means or money over the years to have the opportunity to celebrate or take a nice trip, Carson wants to surprise Dakota with a vacation.
Dakota, what do you think about doing something really fun soon?
Not wanting to imply too much about the anniversary itself, but wanting to plant the seed in Dakota's head to get ready, Carson contemplates his next move and begins planning their trip.
Yeah. Of course. We haven't done anything in forever.
Dakota's brain starts racing with exciting thoughts of what they might do or what might be planned. In the coming weeks, Carson's anniversary ideas go to everywhere, from exploring ancient Europe to having a private beach oasis off the coast of Fiji. About a week before, the secret plans come to Carson in a vivid dream of the desert, and he feels there's no other choice. Carson then finalizes the trip and prepares to tell Dakota as he begins to yell for her from the bottom of the stairs.
Dakota, could you come down here for a minute? There's something I'd really like to share.
Dakota smiles playfully.
Share with me? Huh. What in the world are you up to?
Well, I wanted this to be a complete surprise, and I know you have to plan as well. But I booked us a flight and place for our belated honeymoon. We're going to be heading to Sedona.
Wow. Nice. We've been talking about going there since we've been married.
I know, right? The small portion of my native ancestry is actually from the area we're going to be in. I figured we could not only enjoy the beautiful landscape and nature from one of those relaxing desert getaways, but maybe even find out a little more about my ancestry as well while we're there.
Dakota runs and gives Carson a huge hug.
Love you so much.
Haha, you're happy?
Can't wait. So when do we leave then?
I booked the trip already. For this Friday.
The excitement of their upcoming trip starts to build as they get ready for their flight on Friday. Both of their minds are racing with thoughts of everything they want to do on this trip and how they can make the most out of it. Excitement turns into focus as they prepare for their flight and get ready to go. Going then through the airport and boarding their flight turns out to be a breeze.
See, this trip was meant to be.
Dakota looks back and smiles with happiness at Carson. The flight goes off without a hitch as they distract themselves with talk about how excited they are and all the trips they wish they could have taken over the years of their marriage and all the good times and laughs they shared on the ones they did. For just as soon as they left, they were landing and coming into their destination upon the desert sands of Arizona. With everyone scrambling off the flight like ants in the desert sun, Carson and Dakota step off the plane and try to stop to take it all in, always connecting them together in this moment in time. Gathering themselves, the couple soon make their way to the rental car service for their Ford Bronco, with the anticipation of the absolute fun of beating the hell out of it on the rugged desert back roads of the West.
This thing is pretty freaking sweet, right?
Stop your playing around. You knew this is my favorite car. Love you.
Haha. Love you too, babe.
Jumping in and beginning to head off, Carson smiles back as he steps hard on the gas and enjoys blasting down the road with the 6 p.m. desert sun barely shining over the mountains, creating a sunbeam down the middle of the empty desert highway, as if leading them straight to their destination. Arriving at the resort, it's like something out of a novel. A resort meant just for two, with huge windows surrounding the building so as the landscape and wildlife cannot be missed. It comes with a stillness that's raw and serene. So far removed from civilization, placed in the bowels of the desert valley and surrounded by cascading mountain walls, your oneness with nature cannot be questioned. Sitting in their personal heaven, staring out what feel like invisible windows into the valley, they enjoy the sunset melting behind the mountains to the west, as the shadows of an ancient land reveal their secrets to the couple, making it feel like all this was meant just for them. As morning comes, Carson and Dakota decide on the Red Rocks hike they've read and heard so much about as their first adventure from the long list of adventures they have planned.
Water? Check. Snacks? Check. Sunblock? Check. And maps? Check.
Carson, wanting everything to go smoothly, continues double-checking their items.
What are you doing over there, babe?
I just want to make sure we're covered. This dry heat has never bothered me for some reason, but I've heard people can get lost out there in the desert.
Heading down the road into the blaring desert sunshine, the two soon find themselves arriving at an entrance of sorts to the Red Rocks. Coming upon a big metal gate with a little shack a few yards beyond it in the distance, the two start to look around in uncertainty, but just before they begin to question whether they're in the right place, a Native American man slowly comes out to the gate. Putting down the window, Carson scarcely sees letters of a name tag hidden behind the bright blue and orange colors of a beaded necklace and jet black hair, spelling out the name Achak.
Hello. We're here to hike and visit the native lands.
Achak acknowledges Carson in a strangely calm and knowing way.
Yes, I know.
Achak tells them that the trails to ancient native lands have to be entered on foot, which was at least a 2-mile hike to get to the trail, which is as raw as it gets. Achak speaks to them about this place they were about to enter and to respect it. He tells them of the history of the ancient land, the natives who used to reside here, and that they should stay on the path and not venture off.
This land is sacred and has shown our ancestors many great things. There are many paths throughout, but only one leads back. You must be careful.
Carson and Dakota thank Achak and head off into the land. Walking on the ancient path, the couple are again fascinated by the landscape. Looking like a distant planet with its distinctive red color and barren rocky features, this is something foreign to them, being from the lush green mountains of the east. Along this planet of red rocks, they noticed what they had only heard about briefly from Achak as the ancient hieroglyphs that are said to sometimes strangely disappear and then reappear, and that were never fully deciphered or understood. Not even noticing, Carson begins to wander and finds himself being drawn away from the path and to these hieroglyphs stretching upon the desert walls.
Dakota, look up to your left. Do you see them?
See what?
The communications of the ancients, the hieroglyphs.
Dakota, only a few steps behind, begins to look up.
No, I can't see them. Where are they?
They started as soon as we entered this cavern. They're right there.
Dakota, starting to realize the hieroglyphs that Carson is chasing, is leading them away and into a cavern-like structure with walls towering up to 30 feet high. trying to catch up. She looks ahead through what seems to be miles of rocky corridor, representing a literal maze of confusion. Carson, though, seeming to know every step, continues on unfazed by the desert heat or rugged terrain, not realizing how far they're slowly being drawn in. Dakota, moving ahead, continues to look up for these supposed strange hieroglyphs as she proceeds on through the narrow corridor, trying to find her way back up to Carson. Carson, being drawn into these towering hallways of stone, can see but his shadow self leading the way, as a sun-filled sky can only penetrate through the small, narrow corridor leading his way. Gazing upon the hieroglyphs, Carson becomes perfectly hypnotized by the strange-like glow they begin to emit, lighting up the shadow-filled cavern walls, pulling him further and further in. Carson, walking straight ahead, as if in a trance-like state, begins losing himself within the structure of this towering maze. Approaching some kind of formed circular rock-like structure, Dakota can only yell ahead.
Carson, wait up!
Carson, only a few steps ahead, suddenly disappears around the corner. Dakota rounds the corner where Carson just was, only he's not there.
Carson, where'd you go?
Walking on a bit more, Dakota looks ahead, down the length of the corridor toward the corner, and yells for Carson again.
Carson! Babe!
Beginning to panic, Dakota begins walking up and down the narrow path they were just on, looking everywhere. Dakota, in full panic mode now, is flooded with hundreds of scenarios going through her mind, wondering what might have happened. Echoing from the cavern walls, Dakota hears the sound of crashing rock just up ahead, where Carson had turned the corner and suddenly disappeared. Running full speed towards the sound, Dakota yells out for Carson again.
Carson! Where are you?
And just as suddenly as he had disappeared, he was there. Laying unconscious, Dakota attempts to revive Carson, using some of her cold water on his forehead and chest while checking his head and neck for injuries. Carson begins to come to quickly, and it doesn't appear that he's sustained any major injuries. Groggy and confused, Carson tries to get up.
What the hell happened? Did I fall and hit my head or something?
Dakota, just relieved that Carson seems okay, begins to feel her panic and anxiety subsiding for now, but is still confused as to the sudden turn of events and how everything played out.
You okay? What happened up there? Where the heck did you go?
Not wanting to upset or confuse Carson anymore, and just wanting to get Carson out of there, Dakota decides not to dwell on it for now, and is just grateful they are both okay. Heading out of the canyon, Carson's disorientation continues as he begins to speak out incoherently as Dakota drives on.
Cannot return. Something is missing. It's not right. It's all wrong. Help!
Babe, what's wrong?
Carson begins to slip in and out of consciousness as Dakota struggles to keep panic and fear from consuming her while racing now in the direction of the nearest hospital. Pushing hard, down on the pedal, and trying to grip the steering wheel and her phone with the hospital directions at the same time, Dakota struggles to keep her focus, charging down the desert highway at top speed. Suddenly, Carson grips the seat with his hands on either side, simultaneously thrashing his head back, slamming into the headrest, and becoming frozen there, like being possessed by some outside force. Dakota, speeding over 90 miles per hour now for the hospital, reaches out to Carson and sees what she's often seen in her work as a nurse in patients with Alzheimer's, struggling to get back to their current reality, waiting for the disorientation to loosen its grip and return them to their present bodies. With his neck cranked back and face pointed straight up at the roof, Carson's eyes begin to roll back as Dakota looks on in horror.
Oh my God. Carson! No!
Arriving at the hospital, Carson is rushed onto a cart and through emergency, as all he can see is the tunnel he's now racing through, filled with unimaginable colors on all sides. Moving too fast to comprehend and understand their brilliance, he suddenly then finds himself back in the desert, where he and Dakota had started. Getting up and dusting himself off, Carson, disoriented, remembers the start of he and Dakota's anniversary hike at the beginning of the trail, but not much else. Checking his pockets for his phone, he finds nothing. Looking around, he doesn't see her or his phone anywhere. Combing the entire area as panic and night starts to set in, Carson can't fathom a world where Dakota would just leave or go anywhere without him. With darkness creeping in over the desert landscape, Carson begins to run back to the car and to his desperate search for Dakota. Coming upon the car and pressing the key lock frantically with no success, he sees a vehicle that looks a bit unfamiliar in model and color. Having to shove the key in the lock manually, Carson finds that this is, in fact, his rental, but doesn't have time to think about anything else but getting back to the hotel and praying he finds Dakota there. Arriving at the hotel, Carson heads hurriedly to his hotel room. Fumbling the key card, he finally manages to throw open the door. Looking around, his heart thumping, he sees nothing. No Dakota and no trace of anything besides his own bag of clothes and dirty towels on the bathroom floor.
What the hell is going on here?
With his phone lost to try to call Dakota, Carson, on the verge of tears, runs downstairs to the front desk.
I'm looking for my wife. She checked in with me last night. Have you seen her today after this morning? We went for a hike this morning in the Red Rocks and I can't find her.
I'm sorry. Your wife?
Carson, thinking this must be some kind of dream, looks down at the circular, hypnotic shapes of the hotel lobby carpet as if searching for reality.
Yes, my wife. Have you seen her today?
Please, Mr. Brooks.
Before the concierge could even get out a response, a panicked Carson begins grabbing at the hotel lobby phone behind the desk.
Please, I need to use your phone.
The concierge, taken a bit off guard by his guest's behavior, takes a step back in confusion as Carson reaches over the lobby counter and quickly grabs for the phone. With his hands shaking, Carson dials the number and waits.
Hello?
Dakota?
Who?
Dakota?
Who is this?
Carson, your husband?
Carson starts to slowly realize that the voice on the other end of the phone is one that he doesn't recognize or comprehend.
Huh. Mister, I don't know who you are, but my husband hasn't got that excited to speak to me in years. So you definitely have the wrong number here.
Wait, this is 5550199, right?
Yeah, it is. But I'm not your wife, okay?
You're sure your number is 5550199?
Yes, quite sure. You said your name was Carson?
Yes, this is or was my wife's number. Who are you?
Carson's frustration continues to rise as he waits silently for answers on the other end of the landline.
Well, this is my number and has been for years. So you're barking up the wrong tree. Now goodbye.
Hello? Hello? Damn it! What the hell is going on?
Carson, still not able to find his phone, then asks the concierge with his dated name tag and dusty uniform if they happen to have a computer where he can do some research.
Yes, sir. We do have a computer in use for the guest. Right this way.
Whew. Good, thank you. I can't find my damn cell phone anywhere.
Cell phone?
Carson, too panicked to even notice, is right on the heels of the concierge as they walk down the hall and past the hotel ice machine to a dimly lit back room with a single computer tucked into the corner.
Here we are, sir. It's a little slow, but there is internet service.
Carson pushes the dusty power button of the old computer and waits with nervous anticipation as it looks and powers up like something out of the 90s.
Come on! What is this? Ugh, finally!
The computer finally firing up, Carson begins his search, trying to bring up Facebook and nothing at all comes up. Then his wife's name. Again, nothing. Typing away frantically, and finally something in the search engine comes up under Dakota's maiden name, but it reads Dakota Evans Smith. Carson clicks on the name and suddenly there it is, staring him in the face. Mr. and Mrs. Kurt Smith, happily married on this day of October 1995. It was her. But how could that be? How could it?
What is this? This is insane.
For the next 2 hours, Carson sat scouring the internet for anything he could find on his wife and the area he found himself in when she disappeared. Like an old microfiche flying by, the information felt like it was being uploaded into his brain at lightning speed. It said that the ancient native peoples of this land, the Anasazi, of which Carson has ancestry from, believed that their land was a source of great energy fields and portals that, as they described it, had the power to change the path of one's life. Then, just as fast as the microfiche of information was racing from the computer to his brain, like some kind of telepathic communication, suddenly it stops and Carson has to refocus his eyes to believe what he's seeing. The circular structure he had walked into on their hike. There it was. The portal of life, as the Anasazi called it, was said to be a portal leading to what pseudoscientists called a multi-dimensional gateway.
I got to get back. I've got to get back now.
Jumping up from the chair, Carson runs immediately to the car, jumping in and peeling out of the hotel parking lot towards the desert and the structure. Barreling down the highway like some kind of road warrior, Carson grips the wheel until his knuckles turn white, racing towards the desert entrance. Sliding in sideways and screeching to a sudden stop in a makeshift sand-filled parking lot, Carson jumps out of the car and immediately begins running into the desert landscape and towards the structure. I have to get back, Carson thinks to himself, so he runs. He runs until his legs start to burn battery acid. Then he runs some more. Getting closer to the opening of the cavern walls, Carson begins to get images flashing through his mind of doing this many times, seeing himself and his life in so many different ways. It was like a blur. Seeing himself as an Anasazi, as different people in different times and places, connected and then not to it all. Images and what feel like memories fill Carson's spirit as he feels like he is meant to see and is a part of all of this. Continuing to run frantically towards the structure, the cavern walls begin to light up on both sides, with the glow of the Anasazi hieroglyphs showing themselves to him once again. The walls closing in, everything begins speeding up all around him as he can feel it. Feel the pull once again as Carson is drawn in and towards the circular structure.
Please let me find my way back. Please.
As Carson runs, the tunnel surrounds him and races even faster, filling it with the most indescribable colors, carrying him at the speed of light and drawing him into the heart of the structure. Traveling so fast now, he's almost there. He can feel it. Carson goes through.
Carson, you awake?
A voice, leaning over Carson's hospital bedside, speaks to him. Carson, starting to wake up with his senses and the room still completely blurry, reaches out to her.
You just rest now. You've been through a lot these past few days.
Days?
What is the last thing you can remember?
I can't remember. We were walking in the desert and I was heading towards the structure, then falling, coming to the hospital. It's all still so fuzzy.
It's okay. Just rest up.
Well, how long have I been here? And better question, when can I leave?
The doctor said he needs to keep you at least a few more days. He told me your body had sustained damage, but that you were going to be okay. He said it was like your body went through high rates of speed or something, like some kind of extreme G-force. I couldn't really understand what he was saying, but he wants to run more tests. We're all just really glad you're okay.
As Carson begins to come to and slowly regain his senses, his vision also begins to clear as he only sees a nurse in the room. Looking for Dakota, he notices what he thinks is the nurse, now sitting directly in front of him.
Is my wife here? We were just speaking not only a minute ago.
All his senses fully restored, the woman sitting in front of him in plain clothes just starts chuckling.
Wow. You must have really hit your head harder than we thought, babe. I am your wife.
You're not my wife. You're not my wife. Where is she? Where is she?
The nursing staff holding him down and quickly injecting him with a sedative. Carson can only lie there, paralyzed, and listen. Rambling on, this imposter begins telling him of all the lasting memories and events, connecting their love story through dimension and time, that only his love, his Dakota, could rightfully know. But how? As this stranger continues on, her voice and everything else begins to fade away as it all starts rushing back within him like a flood of information at lightning speed. The portal, the desert, and all its energy. How many times had he been through the portal trying to get home? Carson thought. How many dimensions and life paths had he gone through trying to find his way back? How many times? Carson, looking up at this stranger in front of him, this wife, thinks to himself, where am I? Where is home?
Thank you for joining Paradox Rising Radio Podcast. Please join us next week for another story to help keep you company in the dark.